I'm not even sure how accurate this story will be by the time you actually see this. We're planning on producing it, publishing it about 7 a.m. on the 19th of December, this Thursday, as a clip from a story we posted yesterday. You, Steve, in the conversational. It happened late in the day and turned into chaos. But we will have Elon Musk to blame for a government shutdown if it actually happens, if they can't figure it out. And right now, the chaos looks like it's not going to be figured out exactly the way it was planned originally and the way it was replanned sort of by tweet and by announcement by Donald Trump and JD Vance. Let's go into the actual story of this one so you can get the full details and not just call me an idiot for bashing Musk for not being the greatest man alive. So the government is facing a potential shutdown as a bipartisan stopgap bill designed to extend the government's operations through mid-March and provide $100 billion in disaster and farm aid, encountered significant opposition. This opposition came from President-elect Donald Trump and Vice President-elect JD Vance. They're not quite in charge yet, but they project a proposal that was basically worked out by Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, criticizing it to include the stuff they describe as Democrat giveaways and unnecessary spending, because spending on farming and spending on disaster aid is unnecessary. They're advocating for a more streamlined version of this one with provisions that actually has a debt ceiling involved into this one. That part we'll get to again in a minute. Increasing it so the future fiscal complications don't occur for the administrations. Basically, they raise the debt ceiling. They can keep borrowing money for a while without worrying about anything going forward. When did Trump and when did Vance step in? I'm overstepping my bounds. Musk actually voiced some concerns with with a tweet error, an Xer. He used his platform X to put out some things that weren't quite real, but also just sort of stir the pot going forward. And it's basically saying anyone who votes for this should be voted out in 2 years. Congressmen, people in the House have a 2-year lifespan of their stuff, which is why they're always asking you for money because they have to always run for re-election. They have the smaller version of power, but they always have to make sure they're representing someone who's in place. Senators get 6 years. They have less of that stress going on. But he also said that the bill would give the congressmen a 40% pay raise, which is not what they'd get. They also hadn't gotten a raise in about 10, 15 years. So there's that. But 40% is not what's going to happen. Plus other consequences of government shutdowns. Other people don't get paid. Because of the false claims and sort of the pushback for now adding the continuing resolution, it's going to be a big, hard sort of thing to get this thing passed. Because saving face, Speaker Mike Johnson has to work to get everybody together, get it going forward. But the biggest issue is you put debt ceiling limits onto something. Republicans won't vote for it. You vote for things that is not balancing the budget. Republicans won't vote for it. Unfortunately, with the debt ceiling as it is, ending up on Friday, we run out of money to borrow. We're going to have an issue. And so it would be great if they raise the debt ceiling by a bit and rolled with that for a while. And it would be great if they did some stuff to eliminate a smaller bits of things and work on the fiscal stuff and work on budgeting and balancing a budget. But they can't do both at the same time because they've not passed a balanced budget in many years, which is true. But they're also not working on a balanced budget because they're fighting on everything else. Friday at midnight, funding runs out. When it's not reached, government will face a shutdown, disruptions in various places. And in theory, people on the government dime don't get paid, can't show up for work, parks close, the military shuts down, everything in theory just stops working. That's not how it works in theory. Most of these people keep showing up because they're dedicated to what they're doing. And eventually they'll get caught up. But the fact that these people we put in charge and the people we put in charge who aren't quite in charge yet, and this guy who's been put in charge that really has no power to do anything, are always screwing it up. I say we have Musk to blame for this, but as always, we'll get the Republicans in the House who will take the blame for it, even though they're tossing out the Democratic stuff that, unfair funding. It's the Republicans who actually shut things down, that don't get things passed. And the Republican in charge, who's not in charge yet, is one Donald Trump.